for many years, and I think we've got colleagues here today who know the school and who visited the school and might be able to say a little bit more about the work there. And oh, thank you very much. And we have colleagues here from India online, and basically CPERGers from all over the world, which is really exciting. So I don't want to go back over things that people have heard me talk about before. I do want to use this as an opportunity to update you on how the project is going, and also to take comments and questions from people here in the room as well as people online, so that we can continue a conversation which is ongoing. So it would be good if we knew who was in the room. I think people who are online, could you introduce yourselves in the chat, and then perhaps Adelaide could give us a quick overview later. People here in the room, would it be possible for you to just sort of say your name and where you're from and perhaps why you're here?
And from a sound point of view, I may be your echo.
Yes, okay. Okay, so could we start with you?
Hi everyone, I'm Raquel.
Raquel?
I was born in Brazil. I'm not sure I
Born in Brazil.
Brazilian, but I am a PhD student, third year PhD student.
Third year PhD student.
Publications of your group has been very important in my research since my MPhil.
Yeah.
Which I actually researched teacher learning in Kazakhstan. And now in my PhD that I am researching
PhD research in education
program for fisher women in the Amazonian coast.
For fisher women in the Amazonian coast. Can I say, Hilary and I work at a very synchronistic level. So let me just show you the next slide. So the next slide is, we're based on two of our books, and this is Augusto Boal. My work is to use work of Augusto Boal and other Brazilian revolutionaries in terms of the application of it. And what we're going to look at in this is, we've done the why and the what. How are we doing this? So I love the fact that you're here. Fantastic.
Thank you for setting this up. I'm so excited.
Hey,
come in.
Okay. So who's this young man?
Hi, my name is Will Hamilton.
Will.
I'm currently in the faculty doing my PGCE in modern languages.
PGCE in modern languages.
And the whole notion of peace education and impact education as a philosophical discipline, as a source of human inquiry, is a growing interest in my mind. And coming here, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy you had me along.
Thank you.
To introduce myself properly into this world and to get to know better.
Thank you. Who's this young man?
Could I just say that I'm very excited by that. Stay in touch, please. Hopefully you'll continue your studies with the faculty, and I'll be very happy to be able to support any future work. Yes, good. Fantastic.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Jake.
Hi, Jake.
I was a secondary teacher of languages for a long time, now retired.
Yeah.
I did Hilary's course in restorative approaches way back.
Way back.
In what school?
I've been in Sawston and...
Were you with the Holt as well?
Yeah, and then subsequent to that, I did some work with the Holt.
Excellent.
But I've been out of the loop since lockdown, really, and I really want to sort of get back into things, really.
It's lovely to see you, Jake.
Welcome. Adelaide.
So my name is Adelaide. I'm a co-chair of CPERG, and I'm currently second year PhD with Hilary.
Okay. Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Kevin.
Kevin.
From Burma.
From
I'm
Burma.
a first year PhD student. My research is around understanding social justice and equitable progression to higher education for underrepresented students in Burma.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Angela.
Hi, Angela.
I'm also a first year PhD student, former teacher. I worked in international schools for 13 years.
Yeah.
With a very international population of students coming from all different backgrounds and whatnot. So this is a general interest of mine, just schools and the communities that you build within them.
Excellent. Today we're going to talk about the international work that we're now about to begin, or somewhat engaged in. So thank you for turning up. Young man.
I'm Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
I'm a part-time FD student. I'm looking at sustainability education, but post-university degree
sustainability education.
See whether it works or not. So I work in renewable energy.
This is so exciting. You went to the next couple of slides. It's like we couldn't have arranged for a better group of people. Okay. And who are you, young man?
Hello.
We just introduced ourselves. Who are you?
I'm Nork.
Hi, Nork.
Finished the Masters in Leadership and Education last year.
Leadership education.
And yeah, interested in peace education because it seems to be something that's always going to happen in the world.
I'm particularly interested in your area of work on trauma in education.
With, yeah, especially I'm working on teacher training course right now for teachers to be able to better support and educate children who are traumatized by war displacement. So,
thank you. Thank you. Just to let you know that this session is being recorded. So for those of you who would like it or want to share with your colleagues, then it will be available afterwards. And Angana, who are you?
Everyone. I'm Angana. I'm a first-year PhD student at the faculty, and I research happiness and well-being of students.
Happiness and well-being. And Angana is also part of the CPERG group who created the idea around building this Positive Peace Cambridge, and it's down to her great work and extraordinary support that we're here today. Thank you, Angana. Round of applause for Angana, everybody. Come on. So, what have we got?
I'm going to read from the chat, so we welcome Abhishek, also co-chair from Ahmedabad, India, and Assam from Kazakhstan, Brian from Witchwood School in Oxford, or Whitewood, sorry if I don't correctly. Dr. Christine, working in peace education from Belgium. Asilzan from Kazakhstan as well. Jeannie, also like working in Sadko for primary school. I'm not sure what that means. Lian from Kazakhstan as well, or Lynn, sorry. Sarah, Peacemakers in Birmingham.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, Charlotte from the head of St. Mary's School in Cambridge, so very local.
Hi.
Ria, yeah, first year PhD here from India. Anna from Devon UK Human Rights. Hideo from Soka University, Japan. So
wow.
Oh, Professor Ozaki. Hi, Professor Ozaki.
Professor.
Sensei.
Yeah. Maggie from Essex. Oh, she knows it from meeting. From London, third year PhD, but here at Cambridge, Uday, but Uday is in London right now. Jion from South Korea.
Welcome.
From Zuping, Korean Chinese, MA candidate at Seoul National University.
Wow.
Oh,
Say hi to Kevin, I guess. Chopin, I think, I hope I pronounced it well, from Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev University. Staff and pupils from Holton School in Birmingham.
Yay! Do feel free to chat. We're going to call on you in the next 40 minutes.
Tongan from Tongan, sorry. Also PhD student, peace education. China and South Korea. Adila, peace educator from India. Heather, also peacemakers in Birmingham. Yeah, there's like a lot of people. Lynn says, if you have a microphone.
Kristen, who was over here from America. She was speaking here on the work, the extraordinary work that she's doing on supporting women and girls who are engaged in trafficking and violence. Extraordinary work. I'm going to do a special shout out because she got here, flew back to America, and the first thing she's done is to get online.
Wow,
So,
amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Noriko from Japan, but living in London. Yeah, with PhD in Birmingham. And Emma Claire, well-being and trauma-informing consultant, working in education. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I frame my work and practice within a positive peace framework.
So this is actually a weekend course. So we are going to rattle through, if it's okay, we're going to do a quick summary of what the program's about, and then move into the how is it working in schools now, and then come back to a conversation, because we should end as we've begun, in dialogue. So Michael Fullan in 2012, in a fantastic book on Stratosphere, said that the solution lies in the concentration of the three forces of pedagogy, technology, knowledge. If you want to head off destruction, you need to make it all about learning, let technology permeate, and engage in the whole system. And I think all the people in this room and online are saying, like, we've got systems thinking, we've got change management, and we're going to look at those three strands. So Michael talks about the three T's: teaching, or the pedagogy, transition, the management of change, and the technologies. And so the teaching, or the pedagogy that we're exploring, is using some the Positive Peace program, the profiling tools that we created based upon the archetypes of peace and also the peace matrix, which we'll refer to in a minute. But I'll just give you a quick update of the story so far. We have, since we last met, partnered up with the wonderful people at Cambridge Assessment International Education, and they have supported us and to do initial profiling with Carr Manor Secondary School in Leeds, where Hilary and I first met, St Margaret's Primary in Oldham, and Holt Secondary School in Birmingham. Shout out Holt, I want to hear noise in Holt. There we go. Okay, so, and in the UK, we're now engaged in conversations on staff development and leadership, whole school projects with schools and universities in Wales, in Bath, in Cumbria, and in Cambridge. International schools that we are working closely with Cambridge Assessment in terms of the first stage of this process, and I'll show the stages in a second, in Hungary, in the United States of America, in Colombia, particularly Bogota, and in Kuwait. So these are all active. Now, for any social enterprise that's been set up within 9 months to have achieved this, there has to be something going right. And I think for us, it's the time. It's the timing of this that's important. And for us, and I'll let Hilary talk about this project that we're just beginning with our colleagues in Kazakhstan. Do you want to say a little bit about this project?
Yes, so we are very excited because colleagues in Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan are working with the government there in order to develop our Positive Peace framework through the national curriculum in Kazakhstan. Clearly, with the location of Kazakhstan, as you can imagine, with geopolitics at the moment, peace and conflict are a major concern. Kazakhstan is, as many of you will know, is a country that has incredible diversity, a lot of multicultural work, a lot of work for mutual understanding and so on. But it's been felt that the next stage is to work with Positive Peace. So at the moment, we have a team of researchers in Kazakhstan who are looking at the national curriculum through the lens of our Positive Peace matrix in order to understand how it's currently playing out in schools and how that work may be developed. We're also going to take some schools through a pilot action research program to develop this work through the framework that Roy will explain, that is based around teacher development and student development. This is the work we've already completed within Holt, but we are hoping to continue this pilot in different contexts.
Oh, could you put the cursor back on the bottom left so that it's on the clicker? Keep on there we go. To the right. Do you click onto the next screen? There we go. So this is a at speed summary for those people who don't know. The basis of our work is driven a lot by Johan Galtung's model on understanding conflict, whether or not you're developing constructive or destructive conflict. Constructive leads to peace, destructive leads to violence, and the violence can be direct violence, or it can be indirect, which is structural or cultural, and the peace can be positive peace, leading to social justice, or what Galtung talks about is negative peace. And this, for me, is the core of conflict in schools, because they're full of such lovely people. They're not saying when things aren't working. So no one's directly attacking, but there's a lot of unhappiness and there's a lot of conflict. I'm just going to rattle through these unless you say otherwise. So this is, again, it's a review for those of you who haven't seen it. This is the matrix that we've created to look at the development of peacekeeping, making, building within schools, and its relationship within a peace, out to peace, community, global peace, and ecological peace. And again, you can have access to these slides or a summary of them if you want to contact us later. I'm not going to go through each of the boxes, but basically the work that we're doing in schools, and particularly with HALT, is when we work with a community, and this work we'll be doing in Kazakhstan, is once we've been doing the profiling, we will then find 3 value-creating projects. 1 on peacekeeping, 1 on peacemaking, and 1 on peace building. And I'll come back to what we're actually doing in HALT in a second. What we've done is, in terms of looking at the archetypes of peace, is merge the restorative window and the 5 conflict styles to create the wisdom-based educator, the peace builder, who has to not just be in the top right-hand corner of the quadrant, but say sometimes you've got to be able to collaborate, sometimes you've got to accommodate, sometimes you've got to avoid it, and sometimes you've got to be fighting for it. And so these are the archetypes that we've created: the peacemaker, the facilitator, the peacekeeper, and the warrior. But they all have a shadow side. The peacemaker can quite easily become the savior. The facilitator can often become the servant. The peacekeeper sometimes goes a little too far and just becomes a bystander. And the warrior, sadly, becomes a dictator. And we see this many people who are really fighting for peace end up being often a cause for violence. Before I move on to transition, do you want to say anything else?
Just to say that the matrix is a way of summarizing essentially the work that I've been doing for 30 years, and Roy, around peace, to say that it's necessary for peacekeeping to engage in security and safety within schools. So we're not dismissing that area of work, but we feel that a lot of schools stop there. So with the use of CCTV and locks and rules and sanctions and even reward systems, actually, it's all ultimately about security. Peacemaking is about responding to conflict in ways that are educative. So not doing it in such a way that we mandate what needs to happen, but engaging young people as moral beings in discussion and involving them in resolving conflict. And Jake can tell you, if we have time, about the peer mediators that he's trained in HALT on our behalf over the years, where they're resolving playground disputes. This is obviously important in terms of having peace in schools, but it's a huge benefit to the mediators themselves, because they're learning those skills that they can take into their families and communities and workplaces. And the adults in HALT are using restorative language. They're asking, what happened? How are you feeling? What can you do to put things right? Rather than using punitive language, which is part of the work that we do. And that area of peace building is about building capacity within a school so that it's a peace-loving school, so that the young people, so that the adults, so the parents, so the wider community have a language and concepts and a way of talking about peace. And that extends right the way through to the earth, to the more than human, and to the way that we think about our existential threats, as well as our love for the planet. So that's the what. The archetypes are the how. So if we're wanting staff and students in schools and elsewhere to address these massive challenges, we need to enable or support people to become conflict literate. So understanding what are the conflicts that you avoid, because it's wise to avoid them. What are those that you do take on? How do you do it in a way that protects the weak as a warrior without falling into the trap of becoming a dictator? Many teachers in schools are trapped in that dictator box. Do this because I say so. You don't need to understand. I will punish you if you don't. I've got to get you through. This is for your own good. Yeah, that is a very invidious way of educating future citizens. We need to involve them so that they are able to have those kinds of conversations about what kind of a future they're working towards. We could say loads more about all of these different archetypes, but I just wanted to say that in the literature around conflict styles are traditionally presented as very static. And the idea is that everybody should always be in that top right-hand corner, which is high concern for self, high concern for others. We should all be collaborating. We shouldn't all be collaborating all the time. We have to be much wiser than that about how we respond to conflict. And it's that level of wisdom that we're hoping to develop in schools, that we're hoping to develop in Kazakhstan, that we have developed in Holt.
Thank you. So the second strand, and again, I'm going to rattle through these to move us through the process that we work. And when we work with any school, we have a phase one, and this is very much the work that we've already established with our colleagues at Cambridge Assessment International Education. First and foremost, we have a meeting with the people who are wanting to do this work to make sure it is the right place and time for it. Because you shouldn't just throw peace education at a community.
You have to have buy-in.
You have to have buy-in. So there's time is invested in terms of meetings with the leadership team, meeting with the staff, and then based upon that, we submit the profiling tools and the questionnaires and generate the data from that, look at the findings of the questionnaires, create a summary report, and give feedback. Now, for some schools, for most schools, that's often all they need. They go, oh, I see where the gaps are. Oh, okay, we'll go off and do this. But for other schools, they may want to move into the second of 3 phases. And this is what we're doing with Holt. The section of this is, we find about 8 or 12 peace ambassadors within the teaching community, and we work with them intensely. We take them on a 24-hour immersive training. And by the way, for those of you, we start at 1 o'clock after lunch, just to reassure you, because it's really important that people are refreshed. We work through the afternoon, we give people a rest, and then in the evening we have a Socratic dinner. And then we allow dreams to do their work. And then we meet up the next morning, and then we start the work, and we finish at lunch. So timing takes on board a very structured way, but also acknowledges the role of the unconscious and the unseen in the development of any scene manifest project. We will then create with them, so it usually takes a few hours in the morning, because when everybody's listened to everybody's stories the night before, doing the planning is dead easy. We agree the 3 projects, so the peacekeeping project, the peacemaking, the peace building, and in Holt, the peacekeeping is working with the students on creating resources, an online resource for other kids to understand peace education. They're helping design it, they're helping build it, and they're creating resources, not just for the Holt school, but also any other school we work with. With the peacemaking, we're looking at the relationship with the community, and we're building a peace garden, designing a peace garden so it can be utilized for the whole community. That ticks the environmental and the ecological element of the framework. And then the third stage, and this is where we're just about to move into, is changing the curriculum so that every Monday, every child, every adult sits in a peace circle and checks in in terms of their social, emotional, practical and spiritual. And I have to say, this isn't new. This is already happening. And the work at Calm Manor have given us fantastic evidence base for what would happen if you just spent an hour in the morning getting every member of the senior leadership team and every member of staff to sit in a circle and say, how are you doing? So I would refer you to the Calm Manor and the work of the Lead Learning Alliance. We then developed digital reserves using their own internal digital network to create this so that when we leave, it continues. Our role is always to become redundant as quickly as possible. And then phase 3 is we repeat the audit at the end of the process, usually about 3 months, but it can vary. Then we sign off meeting to reflect on the impact of the program, and then we help create a plan of action for the next stage.
Yeah, so just about the audit tools that we've spent many months developing with Cambridge Assessment. It's a questionnaire. At the moment, Cambridge Assessment have got it on Qualtrics. I think when we do it, it's through Google Forms. So it's the same questionnaire, but we're using it and Cambridge Assessment are using it. We've got shared copyright access to it. And if you think back to the matrix, there are questions within, or items within each of those boxes. So for example, the bottom left hand, protecting personal boundaries, mental health and well-being, there's an item in the questionnaire which is I feel safe. And we've tried to use language that is as simple as possible so that we can use as far as possible the same item across all the different age groups. We do have questionnaires that go from preschool right the way through to adults. Clearly, we aren't using all questions with the preschools and the Key Stage 1, but we're trying to align them as much as is possible. So by the end of the initial audit process, a school has some kind of an idea of the extent to which they are, the outcomes in their school are being achieved amongst those various descriptors. We also, there's a second questionnaire that's about the archetypes and the conflict styles, which we do anonymously across the school community so that a school can see to what extent are our teachers dictators, to what extent are our teachers feeling like servants. How is this playing out in Key Stage 3? Are our students bystanders in conflicts? Are they able to feel they can help to keep the peace? So it creates a profile for the school. At a later stage, schools can choose to do this using people's names. And we've just done that for the whole school population in Holt, so that a student can receive a profile about the different kinds of conflict styles that they're using, so that they can engage in their own personal development with their tutor around how they might want to think more deeply about the conflict styles that they're using. And the interesting thing is with the students at Holt, they're helping create the resources that will help each other to understand the archetypes. For example, cards to quickly summarize what the archetype is, what they're looking for. And I think it's important to note that what we're doing is keeping very simple, it has to be simple, because we understand the complexity. We have a real understanding of systems-based thinking here, but the idea is creating something that always feeds back into it and shifts it and changes it. The phrase there, only connect, living fragments no longer, is actually stolen from Leeds, because this was their mantra for the work we did over the past 10 years to help Leeds become the city of the child. I make no apology for that. And the idea is, how do we use the change process to go through this? So when we work, this is Holt School. This isn't the Holt School. This is our taking you away to the Socratic dinner. That dinner, I'm not going in any great detail, was extraordinary. It was incredible. Because it's storytelling. My background is in the arts and psychology and philosophy. I did my master's in philosophy here at Cambridge, so me and you should chat. But when you create a space for people to be heard, extraordinary things happen. So the simple process, and one of the first exercises we do, if we had time, I'd do it with you now. If you had to break
the stages of change and transformation down so it can be clearly articulated. What would they be? Now, every time we do this, we send people away, go and have a cup of tea, what do you think they are? They always come up with the same 5 and say, because we've only got 25 minutes, I'm not even going to do it. But think, what would be the first stage? And the first stage, there's 3, you saw the 4 circles. The outer circle is this. Clarify your purpose, understand your roles, responsibilities, and reward. Come up with a plan, act upon it, and evaluate it. I think we can all agree that's stating the bloody obvious. The challenge is, when we dig a bit deeper, looking at the neurology, the psychology, the sociology, and the systems, some people like to plant themselves in 1 or 2 of those stages more than others. And the ideal of perfectly balanced circles ain't going to happen, especially if somebody loves a plan and doesn't want to get into any kind of, I need to understand why I'm doing the plan. And so we have 3 elements that we develop. So we call them relationships. What we're actually looking at is values and drives. And if we focus on relationships, we're developing, when we look for purpose, we need bravery, energy, creativity, openness, and motivation. So we can come through into this room through 4 different doors, depending on the audience and the age. Resilience is about creativity, and we use the hero's journey, a sort of edited version of the hero's journey, when we're working with the students, and particularly the students at Holt. They have all created a supernatural aid. They've all created, I think I might even have a supernatural aid to hand. So this rings a bell, people, yes? So this is a philosopher's stone. It's just one of the many ways of getting students engaged. You want to know what's in the box, don't you? Well, maybe afterwards. But the idea of finding the language that's appropriate to the person and the place, and storytelling, call to adventure, acceptance of the call, crossing the threshold, the path of trials, and then returning with the elixir, helps develop resilience. And then finally, so we've got our values, we've got our creativity, we're getting results, which is character education. Because if you're doing the storytelling and you're going through the process of change, you are going to develop the competencies of being present, being kind, being the change, believing the evidence, that means changing your mind, and then being consistent. So we introduce that simple language in terms of managing the change process. And then we look at the technology. The technology that we're using and the technology that's now becoming available cannot be ignored. Michael Fullan's work was happening 20, 25 years ago. And the way that we use the data is we collect it, we organize it, we interpret it, and then we present it. But we present it in a way that a student might want to look at. We present it in a way that is engaging. So collection, we use a form. When we're working with the schools, we can use, if you're a Microsoft, we'll use your form. We are technologically agnostic, but it's pretty simple. And then we organize it. We take all of this lovely bit of data. When I say we, I mean Mark Allen, who does our technology. I can't be arsed. So bringing a level of organization, and Mark's done a really good job here of, these are all anonymized when we do the anonymized data, but it does give you a quick feel in terms of the simple traffic lights, what's working, what's not, what needs development, in what year group. And then we present it on a web page. And again, each of the web page will have drop-down pages for peacekeeping, making, building, so that we can see the events that are going on. And because we share access with the school, they can throw data on it, they can show videos, and it becomes this the gathering of data, both formally from the scholars and informally by the teachers and pupils. And then we share the presentation of their personal conflict profiles. And again, we've done this with Carr Manor, we've done it with St. Margaret's and Holt. This is what a personal conflict tool looks like at its simplest. And when we do the 24 hours, we get the staff to do it again, and we use their own conflict profiling tool as the basis for that weekend to discuss where they are, as Hilary said, in terms of are they high on the dictatorship or low on the servant.
Just to say that the ones in the middle are the creative and dynamic archetypes. So you'd want those to be high scores. So green indicates a high score. The ones on the outside are more excessive and destructive. So you'd want those to be low scores.
Yeah. And so that's it. Oh, look, we're on time. 20 minutes. We couldn't have. So we wanted to give at least 20 minutes for a dialogue. So I just wondered whether or not there's any questions that either within the room or online that we could just discuss this with us over this next sort of 15 minutes, and then we'll sort of finish off with a summary. Observations, questions. Yes?
I could maybe ask a question for clarification, maybe.
Okay, I'm going to kind of repeat what you're saying just for the mic so people can hear it. So question for clarification.
Yes, I see the distinction between the peacekeeping and peacemaking, but I don't really see how peacemaking and peace building, how those two are.
Yeah, okay, so...
I think my colleague can answer that one. Brilliant.
Yeah. So peacemaking is reactive. So it's when a conflict has already occurred. And so when there's an incident of bullying in a school, for example, how you respond to that conflict will define whether you are building peace or whether you are building conflict. So if you respond to a bullying event using a restorative process involving all people, if you think about the needs of the person who's been bullied, if you think about if somebody is excluded or if there are sanctions for the person who's behaved in that way, what happens when they come back into school? How are they reintegrated? How do you continue to manage those relationships? That would be the kind of peacemaking that we would want to promote. But it's always responsive to a conflict. Peace building is proactive. So no conflict has occurred, but we want to build a capacity within a school, the language, the concepts, the ideas, so that we are able to make the peace and keep the peace.
Let me give you an example of that as evidence. In Calm Manor, where they've implemented the weekly check-in with all staff and kids, and then check up and check out with the students on a Wednesday and Thursday, in 7 years, and this is not just a secondary, but the primary schools that are now part of this community, in 7 years, they've lost 7 days in exclusion. Let me just say that again. In 7 years, they've lost 7 days in exclusion. Both Hilary and I have been working with schools in the UK that have lost hundreds of days in a term. So the evidence is there, but the requirement to move from peacekeeping rules, peacemaking, bringing people back together, to peace building is massive, because the simple reason it needs us to move away from a system that doesn't fit the needs of that place at that time with these people. And it's a process of transition, and it's a very personal thing. We can talk about organizational transformation, but if you're not able to do your own human evolution, it's not really going to work.
No, and I've been doing this work for decades, and teachers will always say, but we don't have time. We don't have time to get everybody sitting in a circle. And it's hard to get across the idea that if you invest that time, then you're kind of putting your efforts upstream, and then you're not always responding and reacting to conflicts as they happen. When you go to, any of you are welcome to go and look around Calm Manor. They do on Mondays. They very often have visitors. And when you stop a child and you say, what is it about this school? They will say, it feels like a family. Because the circles that they're part of are, what's the word? They are vertical groupings. So you have, every adult in the school has their own group of 15, whether they're a cook or a teacher or a facilities manager. You have your 15 kids, and they go from year 7 right the way through to year 11?
They actually go from year 6 because they invite on the Monday the local, the primary colleagues. So the year 6s come in just for that session on the Monday, because they can do that because they're a community school. But for within the secondary context, this is from year 7. But the space to talk, but also the language and the structures in which they engage. So they do restorative practice, they do restorative justice, and everyone knows that. And I think it is the balance between the rigor and the structure and the rules. There's no desire for us to say, yes, go and have a big love-in, have a lovely, peace building. Unless you've got the peacekeeping and the peacemaking, the peace building probably won't be able to take place.
But also the peacemaking won't take root unless you do the peace building work, because young people need to know the difference between absolutely furious and a little bit peeved. They need that language. They need to be able to express it. They need to know how to cooperate. They need to know how to have a problem-solving circle. And so you teach those things when no conflict has happened, so that they're then ready. That they avoid destructive conflict from happening in the first place, and they enable constructive processes for when conflict has happened.
We have some questions online.
Maybe I would like the first two.
Yeah.
So one question is, how can, from Brian from Witchwood, Oxford School, how can we become a partner school for the action research? And then the second question was from a Papil, year 9 Papil, peace ambassador. Is the aim to create peace within all schools or communities as well?
Well, to answer the first question, yes, there will be an address and a website at the end of this for anybody that wants to contact us. Yes, because we're not moving quickly here. We're moving a little faster than we had anticipated. But for us, our next stage is to work with partner schools, but within those communities, find associates. And they're going to be, most of our initial scholars are going to come from CPERG. And also colleagues that we've worked with, such as the lovely people in the peace education in Birmingham.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Roy and I set up this business over the summer, and then I got the phone call to say that I was going to be the next head of faculty.
Some people just have greatness thrust upon them.
So, in fact, can we all give Roy just a massive round of applause, because
He's been already to New Zealand as well.
He's been incredible, and none of this would be possible without Roy, because I simply don't have the time, and I feel guilty on a daily basis for leaving so much to Roy. But he is keeping it going, and I will pick it up when I'm no longer head of faculty, and do as much as I possibly can in the meantime. But we need people, because Roy can't do all this work on his own. So we will be having a day in July. Where we'll be training our first branch, our first group of associates, who we will then be able to set up to go and do this work on our behalf in schools. At this stage, we're having to work with people who are already very experienced in peace education, who can just hit the ground running. But once we've responded to the inquiries that we've got now, we've got things set up. The next group of people that we'll be training in the autumn will be people who perhaps would like to grow into this area, and who we can mentor and support, and who we can provide shadowing opportunities to. And so that will be the next thing that we will do. But we need more than Roy at the moment, because we're saying no to schools. There are schools there who are ready to take this forward, and we're having to say we can't do it. We're so sorry, because we simply don't have the capacity.
So for the colleague in Oxford, we're also linked with Oxpeace. We'll do Oxford, we'll do Cambridge, we'll also do Northamptonshire, because that's where I come from, the epicenter. So please make contact with us. I am going to be coming in to do some work with some colleagues in Oxford, and maybe we could meet up there. But I think where we are at the moment, as Hilary said, is we've got all the structure. We know it's having an impact. It's now kind of stepping back and not allowing the tail to wag the dog. Is that okay? Did you have it? Oh, sorry. So
question also from the
the pupil.
Say again?
The previous question that I read from Papa from year 9 ambassador is
Oh.
to create peace with all schools or
Year 9. Well, I will be in Holt later on, but yes, the idea is ultimately yes. We can. It's not a question of us doing the piecework, as Hilary said. It's us working with people so that people can do the piecework, and the people that are really going to do the piecework. And for me, it's been a really moving experience of working with the students, the peace ambassadors. We have a group of peace ambassadors in Holt, and they are amazing. They're extraordinary. So yes, our ultimate goal, yes, world peace. But let's start with Holt. Let's start with Holt and then move to Birmingham. We help make Leeds the city of the child. So let's make Birmingham the city of peace. And it starts with Holt, and it starts with you, year 9. So
I'll restrict it. Just, I mean, it sounds very good. You mentioned a couple of metrics that you've got in terms of the incidence of exclusion. Have you tracked incidents of bullying, the rates of happiness and well-being within the teaching staff and so on in schools, to see whether or not it's working substantively?
We're early on into the research at the moment, but
yeah,
in our past lives, yes.
I could bore you for ages about research design. So, for example, I mean, if it's going to be so-called gold standard, we'd need controls and randomized control and so on. We were nowhere near that. My own little PhD, I did a quasi-experiment looking at peer mediation and discovered that the intervention increased bullying. So, so I will clarify, it increased reported bullying because we'd done a whole load of work on what bullying actually is. In actual fact, when we did the training, bullying went up, and then when the peer mediation had been in operation in the playground for 2 terms, it went down to below the baseline. But you know, you have to be so careful with this work. It's all self-report. Yeah, I do value that kind of rigorous evidence, but I'm also aware of the limitations of these kinds of studies.
A quick follow-up then, separate subject. Given your expansion requirements, have you thought about partnering? So someone like UNICEF, for example, operates a Rights Respecting Schools initiative. Similar but different?
No, not partnering. Our partners at the moment are our CPERG scholars and colleagues within Cambridge, and the people that we work with. And until we're at a stage when we've been through this iterative process and have got real rigor to it, we won't dilute this. We won't dilute this through partnership too quickly.
There's a lot of, I mean, it's always a dilemma with this kind of work, but there's a lot of harm that can be done when people go off half-cock with some of these ideas. And so at the moment, we want to make sure that they are as safe as they possibly can be before they get more widely disseminated. I mean, you know, we've had, I've in the research that I have done on restorative approaches, for example, students have told me that teachers have used the restorative meetings to tell them off. So things can, that we have such structural and cultural violence within the school settings that things easily get twisted. And I would rather schools continue to be unashamedly punitive than to open students up to being open and honest and to having collaborative discussion, only for that to be turned against them. So there's a lot of work to be done. Because what we're talking here is about fundamentally shifting human beings in the way that they think about themselves in relation to conflict and peace, and the way that they think about themselves as educators. Once that shift has happened, which happens within the 24 hours, people start to revisit that, then we give people practical tools that they can use. But bringing about that shift in energy and supporting a team as they try on new ways of being is very, very intensive work. I mean, Roy does weekly mentoring with the peace ambassadors online through that whole transition process, and a lot of it is about how is this for you? You know, how are you? What are the challenges that you're facing, and so on. And I'm not sure you can take that easily to scale.
No. It's important for us we have a long-term vision here. It's about 500 years. Well, I'm a Buddhist, I would say that. I kind of think it is. I don't think Hilary or mine, anyone in this room will see the benefit of our work. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't get on and do it. Because it is a slow burn process. But if we can evidence each step, and we can, and we have amazing people even in this work who in their own research, particularly Angana's work on happiness, like we have got community. The first thing is to build a tribe, and we're doing that. The second thing is to create community. My former mentor Margaret Wheatley said, doesn't matter what the problem is, community is the answer. But we're not at a stage for community yet, because we're still building the tribe. I'm aware of time. Angana.
I have a very brief question.
Brief question. I'm repeating it back so people can hear.
No, just about the varying cultural context we had earlier spoken about.
Yeah, the cultural context of the work.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would be doing differently there with the local partners of the university in the 24 hours session?
God, this is a really pertinent question. I'm not even sure you can answer this question. We have had to adapt some of the profiling questions and even the areas of research based upon the legalities and the culture of that country.
Can I rather? I mean, we will talk about Kazakhstan, but can I say that I'm due to go to Orlando, USA, Florida.
This is being recorded, by the way.
I know. Florida, in order to give a talk about this work on behalf of Cambridge University Press and Assessment on the 24th of June. And I have received advice about new legislation in the US in schools, that there are certain trigger words that need to be avoided. Those trigger words are inclusion,
restorative,
diversity, restorative, anything from critical race theory, anything that might make white people feel that they've done anything bad. I've been told about how curriculum materials are being revised in some schools, for example, not to mention the colour of Rosa Parks' skin.
Sounds like Kazakhstan's a dollar man.
Well, exactly. I think in terms of the language of direct violence and indirect violence and cultural violence, institutional cultural violence, I am furious that my colleague who's doing so many extraordinary things is actually having to be on the receiving end of such violence, and how you manage that. We will see.
I mean that's for another conversation. I am still going, but Roy and I had a bit of a despairing conversation this week where we said we were hoping that this work would help to bring about transformation in society, but we're worried that we might be managing the decline. And I honestly don't know, with the way that the world is going, it's become so polarized. We do this work anyway, but my goodness, what we're facing at the moment globally is terrifying.
Can I say I'm massively reassured by the conversations we're currently having with our colleagues in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
They are extraordinary people, and we can't wait. We're flying over there next month. So exciting.
I have to say, because I think Hilary mentioned that
Yes.
how diverse it is. I've been there 6 times already.
Oh,
In Kazakhstan, 6 times.
6 times.
Yeah.
And it taught me so much, not only all the different types of cultures and ethnicities.
Yeah, the various
that
cultures
we
in
had
Kazakhstan.
prior to the Soviet Union.
Prior to Soviet Union.
Like more than 100.
Yeah.
130,
Yeah.
160.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
But then you also add in the element of thinking of the Soviet Union and what that was, and also when it was no longer.
When it was no longer.
Suddenly, and how people had to coexist.
Yeah.
And the Soviet Union was very much like what Europe is, like in terms of flow of people and cultures and languages. And
yeah, the former.
So I think there's a lot of understanding.
Yeah.
Of acceptance of different ways.
There is.
That's the impression I've always had.
Yes.
Well, I'm aware of time, but I'm also aware that you are not going to leave this room without us having a conversation or even getting a ticket and bringing you to Kazakhstan. I'm aware of time. There's a final point.
So I was wondering, maybe we could like make an official close, and then whoever wants to stay around.
Yes, we'll do an official close at 2 o'clock, just because people have to go. But if anybody wants to hang around for a little while, I'm going from here to go to visit another school in Cambridge. But I'll be around for a little while. But let us just conclude. Thank you so much for the beginning or the continuation of a dialogue, and thank you so much for organising this, colleagues. I'm just going to finish off with. Okay, I'll speak to you soon. Okay. So what does this mean in terms of our work? We have to keep it simple, and we have to keep the children at the heart of it. Because if we do anything less than that, we are not doing the work. And if a 4-year-old can understand what it is to move through the process of peacemaking, keeping, making, building, through the process of knowing, doing, and being, these are the generation. These are the generation by using simple systems with feedback. And so I'm going to finish off with these final thoughts. This is a quote from the Buddha. And he said, if you know, but you do not do, you do not know. And the wonderful thing about this community and the CPERG community and the colleagues is not only, they're quite clever. A lot of people in this room have got the brain the size of a planet, but they've also got a heart and a hands to match. So thank you very much. Hilary, thank you very much, everyone. And thanks to everybody turning up. So we'll just take a breath, but if anybody wants to carry on chatting about this, do you want to stop the recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.